The Toronto Raptors are coming to Toyota Center this Friday for a rematch with the Houston Rockets from last year's thrilling game that went down to the wire. It was only a 2-point loss in a game which Jalen Green really struggled. If you remember that game, that was the game that Jalen was not able to break the record for the consecutive 30-point games by a rookie, and that was not by coincidence. Nick Nurse is a mastermind, and he is able to create defenses to do exactly what he wants to do. And for our team, he knew what exactly he needed to do, which is pressure the ball, guard, contest with length, and switch. And with that, when you have a young team with a young backcourt, you're going to end up causing issues for them because it forces them into tough isolation plays and forces them to take really bad shots. For Jalen in that game, throughout his scoring stretch, he'd been facing teams that played drop coverage on defense. And do you guys remember from the other videos, a drop coverage is when the big on the other team drops about maybe 4 feet away from the screen. So for example, you have Jalen walking up with the ball, Sengun will come and set a screen for him. Once that screen comes, the guy that's dropping Sengun is going to back up a few feet to allow his guard or whoever is guarding Jalen to fight around the screen, whether they're going under or over Sengun. And the reason he drops back is to prevent Sengun from rolling to the basket uncontested. He also drops back in case Jalen decides to go downhill after the screen and tries to score. If the big is too far up, then he's at a disadvantage because most of them do not have the foot speed to be able to back up and backpedal in time to keep up with athletes like Jalen Green. So they drop to be able to keep everything in front of them and allow their teammate to be able to fight over the screen to get back into position. The issue with the drop with guards like Jalen and Kevin Porter and all these guards, pretty much every guard in the NBA that can shoot, is that space that you give the shooter is just wide enough for them to shoot open shots. And for example, if you watch Dame is one of the best guards against the drop. Obviously, Steph Curry is the GOAT versus the drop. And if you remember, I'm going to keep saying this, Al Horford on the Celtics, one of the reasons they lost that series and Steph won Finals MVP was because Horford would not step up to guard Steph Curry on the screens. And the Warriors just spammed that over and over and over again. So that's how teams like that play the drop. And usually good guards like Jalen and Kevin Porter are going to eat versus the drop because it gives them so many options. They can shoot, they can get downhill on their drives, and if you see a big that far back, even though they're far back, most of them do not have the hip flexibility to be able to change direction. So if you hit them with a little hezzy one way and switch directions, most of them are done. So we eat versus the drop because we have those types of athletes. When you have a team like Toronto does not drop. They switch. And not only do they switch with interchangeable defenders that are all about 6'9" to 6'11". They can all move their feet and they're all have like 7-foot wingspans. So when you have that, what that forces you to do is go into tough isolation plays. So with teams like that, either you're going to have all-world ISO players, or you need to be able to take advantage of the fact that they're not a big team. And the way you do that is by utilizing your big man. That's where Alperen Sengun is going to be very important in this game. Alp's post-up ability is going to be crucial because they do not have a body type on their roster that could check him in the post. And this was apparent in the last meeting because Sengun had a pretty good game. Even though he missed a couple of bunnies, most of the plays that he got were just, layups, or if he even missed a layup, it was something that he should have made. They couldn't guard him, and I need our guards to be able to see that in this game. I was encouraged by what I saw from game 1 versus the Spurs, that they were able to distribute even though their shots weren't falling. This is going to be a game that might force them to have to play one of those types of games because the Raptors are going to be switching and they're going to be forcing a lot of tough ISO plays. And if this isn't apparent enough, go watch the film from last year. Jalen Green versus Khem Birch. Khem Birch really won that battle because he was able to keep his feet. He was able to keep Jalen in front of him. And even if he got beat, as long as he contested with length and his teammates were there to crowd the paint and help him, they were able to force him into bad shots. So now this year, instead of the outlet pass for Jalen being Jayshawn Tate, being KJ Martin, being Garuba, being Sengun in some plays, he has a 57.1% unguarded three-point shooter in Jabari Smith. So that's a big difference from this game, is that the spacing Jabari offers is going to be very crucial, but they have to be mindful of where he is on the floor at all times. You pair that with some of the other development of the other guys. Obviously, KPJ is going to be on the court. Obviously, Eric Gordon is going to be playing in this game. Then it's a whole different team than the Raptors face towards the end of the season. The onus is going to be on Jalen to be able to recognize what they're trying to do to him during their defensive sets. If they're going to be switching out on him, he needs to be able to get downhill fairly quickly and make them commit to the paint. If you watch the game, what Kevin Porter did was exactly that. Kevin Porter in that game was making quick decisions. When he loaded up when he allowed the defense to load up, a lot of times they were able to kind of force him into some contested jumpers. Now, he was hitting a couple of those. He hit a bunch of tough step backs, but that's not something that I'm going to be comfortable living with on a night-to-night basis. So a lot of his shots came off of just attacking, getting downhill in transition, not letting them get set. And I need more of that in this game. And even to add it to the next level, I need both him and Jalen to be able to do that in transition. And then once they collapse the defense, kick it out to your shooters. Those shots are going to be there. So the combination of rim pressure and Sengun's post pressure with the shooting of a Jabari Smith Jr. and Eric Gordon, to me, is going to be the difference in this game. I expect the Rockets to win this game because I feel like they're a more talented team than the Raptors. They just have to put it together. The Raptors are going to be probably more well coached. They're probably going to be more disciplined. They're going to be more fundamentally sound. But the Rockets have to out-talent them and use their talents to their advantage. Whether it's their speed, Sengun's post-up ability, or their perimeter shooting, if they're able to capitalize on those talent advantages, then they can win the game. But it will not be a game that you've seen against the Spurs. These are not the Spurs. So this will be a great test for our young Rockets. So just last night, everybody got to see Victor Wembanyama versus Scoot Henderson live on ESPN. And now the talk of the town is to tank for Wemby and Scoot, which is understandable. I think there was a report released today that said that an executive told Woj that this will be a race to the bottom that they haven't seen in NBA history. And I get that. I mean, you're seeing a guy that's 7'4", can handle the rock, can shoot from the perimeter with fluidity. He's a defensive just anchor in the low block and post, can come out and guard the perimeter. I mean, the kid looks like probably the best prospect since LeBron James. And it is no surprise that there are going to be teams. I believe there are going to be teams that are going to be tanking just outright, like the Spurs of the world and maybe Utah and the Thunder. And I think there are going to be some teams that are going to surprise some people. And once they see what type of team or record they're going to have a few games, maybe a month or two into the season, they're going to enter the Wemby sweepstakes. Now, the question is, should the Rockets tank? Should we tank for Wemby at this point in our rebuild? And this is not an easy question. A lot of people try to make it as far like it's a black or white thing, like it's either yes or no. It's really a philosophical question. And, there's deeper questions under that. The number one question is, what is your definition of tanking? Once you answer the definition of tanking, the question you have to logically ask yourself is, to what extent are you willing to implement your tanking method, whatever that may be? So for me, what I define tanking as is strategically and willingly trying to lose games. So that is like you are deliberately trying to lose, whether it's in the front office, whether it's in the coaching staff. I don't think players tank. As a former athlete myself, you can't get to the level that these guys are at without being just crazy, just a maniac as a competitor. So I'm going to leave the players out of it. But maybe coaches and front offices may participate in tanking, but I don't think players do. So it's the players and front offices making a deliberate attempt to lose games with the outcome in mind of attaining a high draft pick or whatever asset that they have in mind. And the question then is, what are the Rockets willing to do, or what should they do in this situation? The way I view it at this point in your rebuild, so if you think about it, we're 2 draft picks in. We have 2 of our draft picks. And if you are okay with what the Rockets have said they want to do with the team, which I am, which is just they want to see growth, then there should be no deliberate effort to lose games. Now, I'm going to explain what this means so people don't misunderstand me. If we can get Wemby or Scoot, my God, then yes. But there should be no deliberate effort to win games, because the NBA historically has shown that winning and building winning cultures is not a switch. Meaning you don't just, we're going to tank for 5 years, then win the next year. It doesn't work like that. Winning is a habit. It's a habit that is really, really hard to develop, especially with younger teams. So teams have to learn to build that winning culture. And it starts when you have your foundational pieces. You want those guys to be able to experience meaningful times in the NBA so that it'll carry them on when they get to the point when they're competitive. So that's one way to look at that. Meaning you do not sabotage that experience for the sake of a chance at even a generational player. There's a but there. The but is if you're going to let the players show you naturally what they are, then you should be open to either outcome. Meaning that if you're going to lose because you suck, so be it. Don't try to get better. Don't try to add free agents at this point because of the chance of you even getting a Wemby or a Scoot. There's no need for the Rockets to actively try to improve themselves in this season because of the incentive of that draft pick. If you roll out your guys that you have right now and they just are bad, then you're fine. Business as usual. But where I disagree with the premise of the preemptive tank is that you have your players, and in fact, to me, imagine we even traded Eric Gordon. So you have a team just full of young guys, your Taris, your Jabaris, your Jalens, your Kevin Porters, your KJs, your Senguns, your Tates. These are the guys, the Josh Christophers of the world, Garuba. They're playing and they're actually winning games to the point where your top 5 pick status is in jeopardy. If you as the organization step in to stop that, you've erred. That is the wrong approach to team building. That should be taboo, and that is just a losing culture being set. If the young guys win because the young guys are ready to win, then you have to let them, because ultimately the goal of team building is success. There's not one method to success. Teams have built championship rosters by free agency. Teams have built it through the draft. Teams have done it by combination of both. Rarely it is done by tanking for long periods. Tanking is just a tool. Tanking is a tool like free agency. It's not really the tank that wins you games or gets you good players or develops your players into championship teams. What does that is your development staff. What does that is your front office. So bad teams that have bad cultures that tank they just suck. They're going to keep sucking. And there's plenty of examples of that in the NBA. But if you have a competent team with a competent front office, competent coaches, then tanking is a tool to acquire assets and resources that you can utilize to win. But it's not the end all be all. So as we are, everybody's fawning over all of, these new prospects, just remember, there's no one size fits all for team building. If your guys are telling you they're ready to compete, then you have to let them. If the team comes out and they're vying for a play-in or a playoff spot, it would be asinine for Stone or Tillman or Silas, I don't think Silas would, to try to interrupt that organic development for the sake of a chance at a top pick. Now, just to close with the tanking thing, I don't think the Rockets are going to be just a team that's going to just oh man, they're going to be in the first round of the playoffs. They might, but I don't think so. I also don't think that they're going to be the worst team in the league, or maybe not the third or fourth worst team in the league. So it's going to be kind of tricky. There is an avenue where Stone and Tillman are going to have to make the decision on when to shut guys down. If, for example, and this is where it's not a black or white argument, like it's not something you could just, oh yeah, we need to tank, we don't. It's really like, it's kind of, you have to read the tea leaves, and there are so many factors that impact these decisions. But for example, here's a scenario. You're going into the season, you've passed the the All-Star break, and you've passed the trade deadline, and you guys are playing, but you see that even though they did better than they did last year, there's really nothing going on. Like, you're on pace for 32 wins. You're not going to really be in the playoffs, but there's like 10 more games left. Now, if the odds are that if you lose 6-7 of those games, that you have a better chance of getting Wemby or Scoot or a top 3 pick, I'm okay with shutting guys down for that, because the team has already shown you that they're not really going to do anything that season. And if the chances of them doing something is so marginal that the odds are it's probably not going to happen, I'm okay with them making that decision. Hey, Jalen, good season. Let's see some Knicks. Let's get some Knicks at point guard. Let's run Knicks for 40 minutes, right? Hey, Jalen. Hey, Kevin Porter. Hey, Alp, great season. Let's rest up for next year. Let's get some burn for Garuba and see what he can do. I'm okay with that. But those decisions aren't just predetermined. You have to let the play of your young core, and I keep emphasizing young core. The past few years, with the teams with John Wall and Victor Oladipo and Christian Wood, that's not a team that you try to compete with, even though the Rockets did try with the wow factor. Luckily, they failed, and COVID came in, not luckily, but all of that happened, and we were able to land Jalen. The next year, you're playing Eric Gordon, you have a Daniel Tice on the team, you have your Tates, you have your Christian Woods and all this stuff. That's really not your young core. So I was okay with them pivoting away from that midway through the season, as we saw when they let Jalen and the young guys play after the All-Star break. And naturally, even though they were exciting, they still weren't a good team, and they didn't win many games. They beat the Lakers, they beat Memphis. I think they beat like one other, and that's pretty much it. And that's okay. This season is a little different. A majority of your team is your young core. So you have to respect what they show you. So if they show you that, hey, we're viable. Hey, we're in the hunt. We're in the 9th spot. We're an 8th seed in the playoffs. There's nothing that the Rockets should do but try to go for it at that moment. If it is a case where they're 10th, 11th seed and the odds are they're not going to make it, shut it down. So this is Stone's job to make that decision. What I want the fan base to really get a clear understanding for is that there is no reason to preemptively tank from jump. There's no reason Jalen should be getting DNPs and all these, resting games and all that. At this point in his career, at this point in Jabari's career, they don't need to see that. They don't need to feel that in the NBA, and I don't think it's even beneficial for them. So I just think that let the guys play. Most people think we're not going to be that good. So if we're not, then we're going to be in play for Wemby. If we are good, then hey, we're all going to be happy because everybody loves to see the Rockets play good basketball. So with that, those are my opinions on the tanking thing. That's my outlook on the Raptors game. I want you guys to comment and let me know, do you agree with me or do you disagree with me? Am I crazy? Am I an old man yelling at the cloud? I know I have a couple beers. I'm not that old, but I'm just saying, is this something that I am wrong in thinking the way I think? Comment below. Let me know if you agree or disagree. And remember to subscribe to the Chop Shop and keep supporting us. Thanks for all the love that the fan base has shown, and we'll just keep putting out this great content.